Hi, welcome to The Curve on Health Matters. I'm Kat Leonard.
And I'm Meghan Bradley.
It's the truth. We haven't told you any lies
Not
as
yet.
of yet.
Not yet.
Today on the show, we are exploring mental health and a couple of people who have experienced mental health in different aspects, and they've created art around it to help heal and to help others heal. First up, I would like to present to you a gorgeous human being. Her name is Lori Lane Murphy. She is a comedic storyteller and a mental health advocate. Take it away, Lori!
Thank you. I grew up in an epic time. It was the 70s. There was nothing better than being a kid in the 70s. My brother, who's 2 years older than I am, we used to fight over the TV all the time. Now, keep in mind, as it was the 70s, we didn't fight over a remote. We fought over the actual TV. It was the large zenith in the corner, you know the one. It took up a lot of space. I'd throw my body in front of it. He'd throw his body in front of it. He was always gunning for $6 Million Man. I always wanted the Bionic Woman. This was a never-ending battle. Cartoons, Monty Python, SCTV, Young Frankenstein. This is the stuff my childhood was made up of. My father was a typical 70s dad. He was a bit of a Burt Reynolds type. You know, the mustache, sideburns, and the dress shirt that clashed with wallpaper. And he was with us every step of the way. He was so much fun. That's what it was all about. All of this, and my father was severely clinically depressed. All this, and I had a happy childhood. I'm especially drawn to my memories of Saturday night. Never mind the fact that Saturday mornings were all about cartoons, but Saturday evenings at 5 o'clock, it was the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner hour. And everybody in the family hunkered down in our green and gold living room to watch. We were also able to have Kraft pizza in a box. I don't know if you remember this, but it came in a box. It had a big jar of sodium-laced tomato sauce, and you had to make your own dough. You took out the cookie sheet, you spread the dough, you tried to keep the holes from taking over. Once you patted it down, you put the sauce on top, you took out the little package of what appeared to be grass clippings, and you sprinkled it on top. That was a huge part of our Saturday nights. And then for a snack later, it was Ritz crackers with spray cheese. Everything in the 70s had a slightly carcinogenic feel to it, but it's what I remember and what I'll always remember. When Bugs Bunny came on, the cartoons, I'd ask my dad, "Do the Foghorn Leghorn voice, Dad. Do the Foghorn Leghorn voice." And he'd do it for me every time, no matter how many times I asked. We could quote everything, line by line, laugh by laugh. It didn't matter how many times we saw those cartoons. The fact that we watched them together made it so special. My life made sense through comedy. Everything we did was through the lens of laughter. Because if my dad was laughing, I could be taken away from any dark and scary place. And if my dad was laughing, he wasn't in a dark and scary place.
Yay, Lori!
Thank you.
Come on over.
Thank you.
Step up. This is a health show. Come on. That was excellent. I have shivers down my spine.
And I enjoyed reliving my childhood with you. That was so much fun.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
That's kind of a little bit about what it's about, is no matter what era you were that age in, it takes people to that era.
Absolutely.
Whether it's the 70s, 80s, 90s, even before.
And even if you didn't live through the era, you get the references.
Yes.
From all
Yes.
the
Looney
internet
Tunes,
memes.
timeless.
Yeah.
Green
Kraft
and gold
pizza
living
box.
room.
Did
Yes.
you have it?
Did.
Gold living room.
Gold Shag, actually.
Yes,
Gold
us
Shag.
too.
Yeah, it was the
That's
best.
a whole other show.
Yeah, that's a whole other show.
Yeah.
And what you could find in that shag carpet, that was a whole other show too.
Treasures.
Indeed, indeed.
That was excellent, and you are not the only performer at this table. I want to introduce everyone to Adrianna Prosser right now.
Yes.
And what we're going to do is we're going to throw to a little video that you have about your show, and then we're going to talk about both of them.
Excellent.
Let's do that now.
This is a story about coping with loss. Loss is sometimes greater than leaving your umbrella on the subway. Loss is sometimes the thing missing from you that makes you whole.
I lost someone. Andrew was 22. He was my stepbrother.
Half-brother. Blood brother.
In November 2010, Andrew Prosser took his own life. Everything But the Cat is a live, one-woman multimedia play in which actor-playwright Adrianna Prosser shares her true bereavement story.
The show is effective because it's honest. It is her story told by her.
At what point did this become insane? The part where I fantasize the hug, or the part where I stalk him? Oh, get off the subway, get off the subway, get off before you live too dangerously.
I think this is an important show, first and foremost, because it provides kids the opportunity to recognize that they're not alone.
Through the fallout of losing her younger brother to suicide, Adrianna learns who her true friends are and learns to use their support, along with her own inner strength, to grow in the face of adversity and to reshape her own struggle to benefit others dealing with depression and its effects.
It felt so good to let the floor take all the weight that I was holding.
Along Adrianna's journey, interactive shadow puppets reenact the roles of the various people that supported, guided, and sometimes hindered her through the process of finding hope in the face of loss.
The student response has been tremendous. We've shown it a couple of times here at our school, and every single time the kids have responded incredibly positively to it. They've brought the discussion back into the classroom, talked about it for days.
When it seems like you've lost everything but the cat, maybe there's nowhere to go but up.
Adrianna Prosser. Now this is, you are also a mental health advocate, obviously, and this show, you've got a little bit of a different experience from Lori. Lori suffers from mental health herself, and your brother did.
Yes.
So how does exploring this through art, this whole experience, how did that help you heal?
I think it's because I don't know anything else. I think if I were a visual artist, I would have gone to painting. If I was a musician, I would have turned to song. But being a storyteller, actor, sometimes playwright, all of the above, it naturally came out in story. And it was really interesting that people were fascinated with the oral history of it, like that they wanted to go out for coffee and they wanted to just say, how are you? And you know, what's happening with you? Because I dropped off the face of the earth for a good year.
I was going to ask how long it took you from losing him to getting to a point where you could go on a public stage and
took some
express.
time.
Yeah, I would imagine.
It took me, I wrote the show about a year and a half after.
Okay.
And the show is about that first year of bereavement. And it's basically a collection of my diary entries. And just, again, people going for coffee, and after 45 minutes of speaking constantly, they just go, wow, that's a one-woman show. And I was like, really? Nobody else would want to hear this sort of thing. And I was wrong.
Yeah, I mean, and you must feel it too, how much you're helping by sharing your story.
Yes, and the funny thing is I didn't even know it was a story, because growing up, we were never brought into the fold as Daddy has depression. We were little kids, my brother and I, and what we noticed was that larger-than-life character that was my father, and the joy that he brought to the room. And we noticed when he wasn't there. And usually when he wasn't there, he was in his bedroom. And, you know, my brother and I would think that that was odd, and we would just be holding our breath waiting for Daddy to come back. So we weren't really turned on to the whole mental health thing until I was about 18. And then suddenly all of these pieces started to fall into place. And by that time, I was experiencing my own symptoms from probably the age 12 or 13, but I didn't talk about it.
Okay. But did you recognized it based on your father's experience?
I'm not sure that I put those pieces together until I was probably an adult, because as you know, as mentioned, when I was 12 or 13, I was still thinking that Dad was fine. There was nothing other than this odd crying jags, or he would disappear from family functions, or he wasn't working, and how come Daddy's not working? And it was never really explained to us.
Now, in the 70s, was your dad aware he was suffering from depression?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Which is a big step when you think back to the climate of the 70s, and mental health had so much stigma around it.
Still does.
Still does, but even that more so.
Yes, my father's first episode was in 1957,
Okay.
and he was 17,
Oh,
and
okay.
he dropped out of high school, and then the journey began for him, and certainly he experienced everything that is unpleasant when you think about the early days of mental health treatment.
Yes.
The different cocktails of medication, electroshock therapy, all of those things, and a lot of just living with it.
Yeah.
So it, you know, it's bittersweet for me to have this show, because it really is a tribute to him, and letting people know that I have mental illness. It hasn't really hindered me from living a full life.
You're actually quite awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, that was about the show. Or that was the message behind doing a show like this. And it just, my father passed away in 2005, and he's somewhere watching thinking, this is pretty awesome, because there was nothing for him.
That's right.
Nothing, no resources, no help.
Yeah. Adrianna, did you know that Andrew was suffering, looking back?
No, not at all.
Okay.
He was very private, deflected really well. If you started talking about him, he would be like, yeah, but what do you think? And he would just really, really easily slip it back to you and your narrative. We found out later that he had attempted in 2008, which was 2 years before he died by suicide. And because he was of age, his doctor did not need to tell the family.
Oh my.
That gives
So
me shivers.
that's something that I know that mental health advocates and Ontario legislation and whatnot, we're fighting against that, because it should be something that I understand that medical records and whatnot needs to be private. But when they are a harm to themselves, I do think that next of kin or whoever's on their papers needs to be notified.
Yeah.
Had we known, that was 2 years that we could have been helping him from that episode.
Yeah. Well, this is Everything But the Cat is a lovely tribute to Andrew, and
Thank you.
You know, I think you guys are just wonderful. We're going to take a break now. We're going to come back, and we're going to talk about what these two soul sisters are up to together to fight the stigma of mental health. I'm Kat Leonard. This is
Meghan Bradley.
It's true.
It is.
We're going to take a break. We'll be back on The Curve.